I think we see the top of the mountain and we assume that's where we have to go. When in reality, you don't have to decide you want to make it to the top of the mountain. You can decide you want to start. And then the next day you can decide you want to keep going. And then eventually you might decide you don't want to do it anymore.
All of us can look back on our life and look at a time when we made a decision and it changed the trajectory of our life forever. Like, what if Kevin and I had not partnered up? Like, what if we had decided not to partner up? Can you imagine how different everything would be?
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode number 1276. Sometimes people are running from themselves, not you. Today, for episode number 1277, 2 of the most powerful words you can say to yourself. So I still do, but I don't as much as I used to. I used to listen a lot to Big Sean, and I'll never forget Big Sean dropped a studio album called I Decided. And I remember talking to Alan about this when we were the Hyperconscious podcast. I remember saying, I listened to this album. It's great. It's got a bunch of songs that I really, really love. A lot of songs that make you think. A lot of songs that are very hyperconscious. And I said, what a great name for an album. I Decided. Like, those are 2 of the most powerful words you can use. I decided I'm going to start. I decided I'm going to stop. I think it's just an interesting set of words that suggests intention. I decided. That means I'm making a decision today that I'm going to make a change. I had a call with a client recently, and this client has, and this happens pretty often to me, this client has wanted to start a podcast for like 2 years. And I said, what changed? Like, why is now the time? And we ended up meeting this person when we went to see Evan Carmichael. And he said, honestly, after you and I did the call, I decided it was time. I'm grateful I got to meet you because it kind of reignited that fire within me, and I decided it was time. And I just think that's I don't know, I told Alan I wanted this to be kind of like a hyper-conscious episode where how many things have you just not decided yet? I mean, really, how many things have you thought about but not decided? Because there is a difference between thinking about something and deciding something is going to happen, or deciding you're going to make a decision. I told Alan I have to call the physical therapist today. I have to call the office because I keep putting it off. I decided I was going to do research into a physical therapist. I decided I was going to shoot them an email. Then they said I had to call, and I haven't decided to do that yet. And I'm not going to get the results until I do. So I thought this would be a unique episode, a throwback to the hyper-conscious days, because this was one of my favorite topics to talk about however many years ago.
How does someone use the power of I decided if they don't believe in themselves?
Oh, God, that's a great question. I don't think you have to decide to accomplish something. I think you have to decide to start something. So it doesn't have to be, so for us, we have Next Level Live coming up, and somebody might think of that and say, there's no way I'm going to find 50 people who want to attend this event. It's like, all right, cool. Decide that you're going to send one message today. Cool. Decide that you're going to start a list of people who might be interested. Cool. Decide you're going to reach out to somebody who might know people in the area. Cool. I don't know. I think a lot of us, it's almost like, and you've heard me say this many, many times, I think we see the top of the mountain and we assume that's where we have to go. When in reality, you don't have to decide you want to make it to the top of the mountain. You can decide you want to start. And then the next day you can decide you want to keep going. And then eventually you might decide you don't want to do it anymore. I told you this recently. Somebody asked me behind the scenes, they said, why do you guys do what you do? Why do you work so hard? And I said, because we want to have the most successful self-improvement company in the world. Like, that's our goal. That's what we're playing for. And I said, it's not for us. It's from a place of service. And I said, but if I ever decide I don't want to do what it takes, I will have a conversation with Alan and say, hey man, I don't want to do this like this anymore. Like, I decided otherwise. For now, I've decided that that's what I want to do. So I think if you break it down to smaller things rather than looking at the giant trek to the top of the mountain. I think that makes it a little bit more digestible, is what I would say.
When you started the podcast before you and I linked up, what did you decide before that?
I decided I was going to start a podcast. That was it. I think I was ignorant, not in a negative way, but I was unaware. I'll say that. I think that's a more appropriate word, less abrasive word. I was unaware of what all this was going to take. And I think that's a good thing, because I don't know if I would have wanted all this if I knew what it would take. I really believe that at a deep level. And I've told you that many times, jokingly, of like, I'm glad I didn't know what this was going to take, because I probably never would have signed up. Yeah, I may not have. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to decide to start, because when you're in the pool, you might realize, I like this more than I thought. Or you're going to find unique benefits that you didn't. I never knew all this was going to happen the way it has. I didn't know that. So for me, we've joked about this, where for me, it's getting easier in ways where, like, I never expected to have a podcast that makes money. That was never the goal. I didn't really know that was possible in the beginning. So I'm playing with house money in a lot of ways, which is interesting for me. So in the beginning, I decided that I wanted to start a podcast because I thought podcasting would be fun. And I thought I could add a unique flavor of my own value based on my own experiences. That was kind of it in the beginning. That was it. And then I kept going. Now, that was it. Now, here's another example. I once decided I was going to do a bodybuilding show. I decided that I was going to do whatever it took within my core values and beliefs to accomplish that. So I didn't want to use steroids or anything like that. I said I was going to stay natural. But
you did decide to win.
I decided to win.
To at least try to win. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my goal. That's the reason I did it. One, then I decided I was going to do another show. And then, I don't know, a month in, I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. I was getting ready for bed that
Jerry's
night.
Story.
Yeah, I had a cheat meal. So when you're doing a bodybuilding show, depending on who your coach is and where you are in terms of progress and all that stuff, you oftentimes get a cheat meal. And all that is to keep you mentally stable, honestly. It's like you've been dieting really hard and you need something that's going to make you feel good. And there are some physiological things when it comes to that. Like, I don't know the science behind it well enough to explain it, but I got a cheat meal of, I don't remember what it was. It was like steak, mashed potatoes, and a half a pint of Ben & Jerry's. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I had my cheat meal, and I had my half a pint.
God, how miserable is bodybuilding?
It was miserable. I measured it too. I measured like the full pint is X amount of grams. I get half of that. All right, cool. I measured that. Like, I didn't just spoon it out. I measured it.
If I ever get to the point where I'm measuring Ben & Jerry's again, I've made a wrong turn.
I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to, because it's almost time for me to start dieting again. So I had my cheat meal. I texted my coach. Boom, boom. Awesome. I go to lay in bed. And it's interesting because I was dating Taryn at this point. So we dated, and then we didn't date we didn't talk for years, and then we reconnected. So I was actually dating her at this point. Getting ready for bed that night, laying in bed, so hungry, can't sleep, miserable. And I literally was like, honestly, I'm done. Don't care. Done with this. Not doing it anymore. I've decided I'm done. So I go downstairs. I texted my coach, and I was like, hey, man, I'm done. Not doing this. Can't do it. It's not good for me. I'm breaking. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I am breaking. Hammered the rest of the Ben & Jerry's. Texted Taryn, because I think it was a Friday night, and said, hey, we're getting pizza tomorrow. Because at that point, she had only seen me eat chicken and rice and broccoli and eggs. I don't think we had ever been out to a meal at that point because I couldn't, So I remember texting her and saying, pretty much, I decided I'm not going to do this.
It's a great testimonial for bodybuilding.
Yeah. Again, bodybuilding's not for everyone.
You were shredded.
But at what
shape.
cost? At what cost?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I decided. Some of the most important things that have happened in my life have been because I've told this story, I was in a situationship with somebody, and I knew I was going to hurt them, and I felt like I was leading them on, even though they told me otherwise. And I remember saying, like, I decided. That's the thing about deciding. When you decide, you at least have to move forward. You can stop, but you have to kind of do the next thing. I consciously decided that this is not what's best for me. It's not what's best for this person, and there's no way this is going to last. Now I have that awareness. Now what do you do? Now you get to make a new decision. And the decision was, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore, and that's a whole nother story. But that started from a place of saying, I decided I'm at least going to look at this from a realistic lens. Then you get a new awareness. Then you get to decide what to do with that new awareness. I really think it's just that suggestion of intention. I'm going to do something with what I have. That's what deciding is.
We were on group coaching yesterday, and I took everyone through a sort of interesting, what I call time perspective. Maybe I'll call it time perspective meditation. I don't know. But we closed our eyes. I'm not sure if everyone was closing their eyes, but I was. And I took everyone through, the seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, quarters, years, decades, and then your lifetime. And I used the analogy of a globe and how, imagine you're 100 years old and you're looking, you're looking at the world, and then you zoom into all the different continents, and then you choose your continent, and then you zoom into that continent and you see your country, and then you zoom into your country and you see your state or your province, and then you zoom into your state or province and you see your city or town, and then you zoom into the city or town and you see your neighborhood, and you zoom in, you see your home, and it's a satellite view. And I took people through this, like, okay, you're 100 years old when you're looking at the globe, then you're 70 years old when you're looking at the continents, then you're 50 years old, and we took through the whole life. And when I was doing that time perspective meditation, I was really thinking a lot about decisions and choices, which is what this is. I decided. Because there's all those motivational quotes like, it is not your conditions of your life, but the decisions that shape your destiny. And I don't know, if people believe in destiny or any of that stuff, but what I will say is that all of us can look back on our life and look at a time when we made a decision and it changed the trajectory of our life forever. Like, what if Kevin and I had not partnered up? Like, what if we had decided not to partner up? Can you imagine how different everything would be?
I do often. I think about it often.
What if Kevin had never decided to start that podcast? What if I had never decided to leave corporate?
And I just wanted to share a little bit about my experience of Next Level Live in 2022. I've been to a lot of live events before, and there's nothing quite like this group of people in this community that these guys have cultivated. The intimate feeling that you get in the group. Yes, there's a lot of people, but there's not so many people that it's overwhelming. I actually attended this event completely by myself last year, but I also felt right at home when I got into the room. If you've been following these guys on the podcast and you do their monthly meetups and things like that, I have to say there is nothing quite like actually getting in the room and being surrounded by the energy that these guys bring to the table. So if you are on the fence about attending Next Level Live 2023, I highly encourage you to do so. You are going to get so much out of the experience, and you are going to be so grateful that you did.
And we can all think back, and I hopefully all the listeners are doing that, where look back at some of the decisions that you made that seemed so small or so insignificant at the time. Like me being your first guest on your show. Like you deciding to have me as your first guest seems like, okay, not that big of a deal. Cool, awesome, makes perfect sense. He has a podcast, let's do this. But that one decision changed everything. And we all have those choices. The thing is how do we know what choices are going to be such a big deal? We talk about OG Amy and how you went to the mall with her. And shortest story ever for the new listeners, shortest version, I should say. Amy was a listener of the Hyperconscious podcast. She Snapchats Kevin. Kevin answers. That's a decision. She says she's scared and afraid to talk to strangers, and she's curious about this thing we call fear chasing. She still tracks fear chasing, by the way. So interesting. All these years later. It's on her PPT. Which PPT didn't exist back then. So interesting. You decide to go to the mall with her and talk to strangers, ride the zoo animals. And now Amy, 6.5 years later, is still on the NLU team. and I'm going to share this with everyone as well, we have something called the EA Dream Team. It's myself, Amy, and Jenna, and EA means executive admin. And so they support me and NLU. And we have this WhatsApp chat called EA Dream Team, and we also have a text thread called EA Dream Team. And they support me basically in there, and I support them as well. And so we do this thing called EA Fit Pick. And it's just simple. It's basically us three want to keep each other accountable to consistently exercise every day. So let's send pictures to each other and just say, hey, went to the gym. Hey, went to the gym. Hey, went to the gym. So I did my EA Fit Pick this morning. And Jenna, she wouldn't mind me sharing this. She said, Austin and I did legs this morning. I'm just terrible at getting pics. Amy said, I've been working out too, but keep forgetting the pictures. And I said, do we want to can this? ? Kind of like, if you guys aren't going to do this, like really do it, I don't want to do it. That was my subtle way of saying that. And Amy and Jenna, if you're listening, all the love. We're good. So I said, do we want to can this thing? ? Or continue EA Fit Pick ? And she said, I like the accountability, but it's up to you guys. I said, I want to continue, but we have to take it more seriously if we're going to continue. If we're going to do it, let's do it all the way with a fire symbol. She said, I'll get better at taking pics. My alarm's going off. I'll get better at taking pics. I'll at least send a message when I do a workout. And I said fire with a heart. Mm-hmm. And I haven't heard from Amy yet, but I'm assuming she's going to still want to do it. Here's something that I do know. I don't like doing things unless we're going all the way. And I don't know if that's unique to me or if other people feel that way. But for me, we're either going to do this and do it every day, and we're going to commit with all of our heart and soul, or we're not going to do it at all. And don't get me wrong, there's certain things that's like, well, I want to write every day, but I don't write every day. So I'm not perfect by any means. But what I will say is that I always used to say this, nothing grows on the fence. How many things are you in this lukewarm middle fence area of like, I kind of like my career, but I kind of don't. You know what? This relationship is like decent, but it's not great. And you're one decision away from a whole new life. If you can just get yourself off the fence. Mm. And that's what I kind of did with Jen and Amy in a loving way. It was kind of like, listen, are we doing this thing or not? I don't mind. We can stop. But I'm not going to do it half-ass. And hopefully anyone out there listening or watching, as tingy as that might feel, if you're going to do something, do it with your whole heart. And the rewards will be magnificent, assuming this is a positive thing that you're trying to build.
Yeah, it all starts with that. It's almost like when you say I decided, it's like I'm committed. That's kind of what you're saying. Right. And then you figure out, okay, what does that look like? How does that show up? How do I practice that? How do I stay consistent with that? Do I want to shift that? You know, I've told you this many times. When you decided you were going to work out every day, I told you I don't want to. I have decided I'm not going to do that. That is not, that's just not what I want. I don't want that. Which is a good thing because I probably would have, I don't know, I probably wouldn't have made it. But
it's been humbling.
Yeah, I can imagine. But that's the interesting thing is you can also decide not to do stuff. Mm-hmm. When, just as an example, say you're going out to a family outing, you can decide I'm not going to let people walk on me tonight. I'm deciding going into this that I'm not going to be a punching bag, or I'm not going to let people walk on me, or I'm not going to let people make fun of my dreams. Like that's the start. That's the start. Or I decided I'm going to be aware of that if that happens. I know I don't know. I don't know if it'll land in this episode, but it really is like, it is the beginning of everything. You deciding to listen to this podcast. Has it changed your life? Has it shaped your life? Has it impacted your life? Hopefully, right? You deciding to partner up with somebody. You deciding to download a course. You deciding to buy a new book. Those are all the most important things you can do. Now, here's the thing, though. 5, 10, 15, 20 years from today, a lot of us didn't decide where we wanted to end up. And that's the thing, right? Like there are places where you're not deciding to do stuff yet. And those are the places you're not going to get results. So I'm glad we did this one. It's a very next level hyper-conscious episode. Anything you want to add quickly before we get out of here?
The question I had written down is, what have you decided? Or more importantly, what have you not yet consciously decided? Because that's the thing. A lot of our decisions are unconscious and we don't think about it. Versus like bringing it to the forefront of your mind and being like, I decided. One more tiny example. When I first met Emilia, I was at my executive admin's house, Amy, and she saw that I was texting Emilia, and I had Emilia with a little heart next to it. And I had just met her, right? At this point, we hadn't even had our first date. And Amy was very taken back by that, not because of any romantic thing with me, but because she was like, I don't get it. You don't even know her yet. And I said, I don't know how to explain it, Amy. I already have decided that I'm going to be the man that she wants to be with. I want to be with her. I don't want this to be a friendship. I already know. I don't know how to explain it. I think that's more of a spiritual connection thing. But I already knew, like, Emilia and I were going to be together. I already knew that in a way. And when we shared our love story on the Conscious Couples podcast, that actually triggered some people because they think that sounds really arrogant. But essentially what it was I decided that I'm going to be a man, that the best man that I can be, that and I want to be with her, and I want to at least try. And I don't want to be a friend. I remember deciding I don't want to be Emilia's friend. I don't. I want to be her partner. And obviously that's consensual. If she doesn't want to be my partner, that is what it is, but I'm going to shoot for that. I decided that I want to shoot for that. And so there's a million little examples, and I hope everyone can examine their own life. What have you decided? What have you committed to? What have you maybe not committed to because you're afraid of failure? What have you not committed to because you don't believe in yourself? What if I hadn't committed to that? What if I hadn't committed to work with you? What if I hadn't, it's your whole world. Whenever we do episodes about choices or decisions, I always get really fired up because at the end of the day, that if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to make these commitments. And if you don't make these commitments, you're in so much trouble. So I hope everyone believes in themselves more. And I hope you're at least consciously making these decisions of, you know what, I'm going to commit. Maybe I don't know how or exactly what to do, but I'm committing to at least create a career that I love. I'm going to commit to a career that at least maybe is better than this one, or a relationship that's better than this one. I'm going to commit. I decided to have an extraordinary marriage one day, right? And it's not going to happen overnight, but it can happen. And if you just believe that and have faith in that and then work on that consistently, it really is a thing. And so the decision thing is huge. I love these episodes.
Same. Very hyper-conscious. Shout out to group number 9, Operation Breakthrough, for graduating group coaching. So that means if you have been one of the many, many, many people who have tried to sign up in the past, but you've waited a little bit too long and have been unable to get into the group, now is time. We have another group starting on April 4th. Again, everybody wants to be around next level people. And I find one of the biggest problems our community has is finding like-minded people, finding people they feel safe around, finding people where they can talk about big goals and big dreams. That is exactly what this is for. You're part of a WhatsApp group with everybody. Alan and I are in there. Jesse, the assistant coach, is in there as well. And on these calls, we are focused on adding unique value to you where you are in your life. So it is much more custom than a podcast episode. If you are interested or have been, please click the link in the show notes. It is less than $100 a month with the discount code that we provide to our listeners only. So please reach out and we will make sure you get the discount code.
And if you want to talk to someone who has been through group coaching, reach out to Kevin or myself. We can send you their Instagram handle and you can ask what their experience was. You can ask your questions, all that kind of thing. Kevin said this before we started recording this episode. I said, why would someone come to Next Level Live? Why would someone want to? And it was a genuine, sincere question. And he said, someone who is committed to their growth, who identifies as someone who wants to do more than just read books. They're ready for something more than just listening to a podcast or just reading books. Those are great things. Those are necessary things. Without podcasts and books, I wouldn't be where I am. I know that for a fact. But if you want to go to that next level, if you want to go one layer deeper, if you want to get in a room and have an experience, Next Level Live is for you. If you're in the greater Boston or greater Worcester area, please reach out. And there's a link in the show notes as well. All of the information is there. We have frequently asked questions. Book your ticket as soon as possible. We are officially 16 days out as of this moment. As of when this is dropping, I'm not actually sure. But either way, we're like 2 weeks out. So get your tickets as soon as possible. Reach out if you have any questions.
Next Level Nation, tomorrow for episode number 1278. Are you more certainty driven than you think? I don't know where that thought came from, but I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, you know what? We haven't done an episode like that in a hot minute, so we will do that. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.